a 20-second delay, and it's about to go live here in this moment. So we won't actually be on for about 20 seconds, I don't think. Chat, there is going to, oh, apparently we were on. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and welcome everybody here to the channel. I know a lot of you are hopping on here, so we're going to give it a moment. I'm going to share this because of the weird way we have to do this. Can you still hear me there, Mike?
I can, yes.
All right. So we're going to give a moment here because of the, like I said, the random way that we had to start this live stream because I am a technology idiot. We're going to go ahead and get going here too. But, you know, while we're waiting on folks to join, I guess, why don't, you know, for anybody that's maybe watching this in a rewatch, because most of the people aren't here live yet, why don't you tell everybody who you are? You know, obviously you're Mike's book reviews, but, you know, what do you do? Tell us a little bit about your channel.
Well, I wanted to create a channel where I could talk about not only everything that I was reading, but really my thing was to encourage discussion because I feel like it's something we've kind of gotten away with as a people, away from rather, and it's just where people just like agree with me or die kind of attitude. So I wanted to encourage discussion without like, because what's more subjective than a book, right? I mean, it's going to be different for every music might be the only thing that's more subjective than a book. So I wanted to encourage discussion and being like, you know what, we can talk about these things, we can disagree, and we can still go get a drink afterwards and still be pals, you know? So that's kind of the approach that I wanted to go for.
So like I know your background, like you're a Dune guy, right?
Big time. That is my favorite book of all time. Yes, Dune.
Real quick, while we're waiting on everybody to get here, quick thoughts on Dune, the upcoming movies. Like, what are you thinking about it so far?
I say his name wrong, so I just call him Denis Villeneuve, the director. I've loved everything that he's made. And actually, when I went and saw that movie Arrival, I was like, this would be the perfect guy to make Dune. And then when they actually hired to make Dune, I was like, I've died to go into hell. So I trust him. He's said numerous times this is his dream project. So I just don't see this just being, you know, hot garbage or a cash grab. I mean, Dune's not a cash grab. I mean, it has a loyal fan base, but it's not something that casual audiences are going to be flocking to. So I think it has to be something visually incredible, but it's also got to be something that's going to kind of catch modern audience. So I think you're going to see a little bit of modernization, but he's going to stay true to Frank Herbert's words.
The casting is crazy for it. I mean, they went all out on that. I mean, again, I'm a big movie buff, and at first, I thought it was odd when I first heard Timothée Chalamet being cast in that role, but he'll do a really, really good job. I don't know if you know much about him, but
I've only seen him in that Netflix series, the King, I think it's called, or something like that. But yeah, it was good. He was very good.
He's pretty darn good.
He's emo enough to be Paul.
Yeah, he's pulled up. So like I've seen a couple movies with him, and he's been in. I mean, he got what was he? He was nominated for an Oscar in what movie? Call Me by Your Name. He got nominated for an Oscar for that. He's really good, man. So anyways, we'll get into the Wheel of Time part of things. So I wanted to have Mike on here. I've been talking to Mike here about coming on the channel and doing like kind of like a live Q&A here, basically like 4 books ago for him. I've been excited to do this for him. So now that he's finally done, we get to have him on here and we get to talk a little bit about Wheel of Time. You said the reason that you started your channel, or at least a lot of it, was you wanted to be able to set up conversations and discussions. And when I started my Wheel of Time channel, basically, I wanted to have somebody to talk about the show with, or the show and the books and all that. And they're just the communities that used to be real, like lively when the books were being written, were kind of dead. And there wasn't much on YouTube. I think Daniel Green had a few videos out at that point, and I just thought, hey, let's talk about the Wheel of Time. And it's just crazy how this community, the show, has kind of re-energized it. And I think when you walk me through a little bit, why did you decide, because you've been reading books for a long time, why did you decide to pick up Wheel of Time recently, like a year ago?
It's kind of a funny story. Is a roommate that I have, a good friend from high school, was a big fan of the series, and he used to all the time tell me, as much as you love Lord of the Rings, Mike, I think you should definitely check out Wheel of Time. I think it'd be right up your alley. And it was around 2000. We had our first apartment together. Yes, I'm old, guys. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. And the first book didn't really grab me at the time because I think I was looking for something a little different.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was 20 years old. You know, it was a different. I was a very different reader back then. And the funny thing is, the book that I picked up instead of that was a Song of Ice and Fire. So, you know, that's where it kind of went. And then, I mean, the same friend all these years, I mean, he was all the time like, you're picking up this series, you really should be picking up Wheel of Time. It's better. And I finally was like, all right, you know what? I'll check it out. And I was like, wait, this series isn't done yet. Nah, I'm dealing with Ice and Fire. I don't want to deal with another series that isn't complete. And then the author died. And I was like, he died and it isn't even done. I'm glad I didn't start that thing. So really, I think it was when I got into Brandon Sanderson is when I was like, okay, so this is kind of like how a lot of people discovered Brandon Sanderson, truthfully. And I told this same friend, all right, the series is complete now. If they ever make a TV series or a movie series about this, I'll check it out. So not when they got the rights, but once they said it is going to series, I said, okay, I'll check it out. So I scoured YouTube for a couple things and I found your 5 reasons, I think, to watch or why you should read five non-spoiler reasons.
You know, that was my very first video I ever made.
Well, it worked.
A pile of hot garbage, but I'm glad
we got to start somewhere.
Well, that's awesome, man. And then here you are. So it took you about you went through them all in about a year. As a book reviewer, that's pretty fast, I'd say, considering this wasn't the only book series you were reading in the meantime.
I am a very, very quick reader, but I tell people all the time, like, how do you read so fast? Well, like, it's simple. You just, you alienate your family. You don't have real friends. You know, it's just, I'm at that, I was already social distancing before it was cool, guys. I was doing that already. So that's how.
Well, I'll tell you what, I remember. So when A Memory of Light came out, I had pre-ordered it and my pre-order was late. So I had pre-ordered it from Barnes and Noble and they, whatever reason, it didn't come in on time. I found out there was like a Borders bookstore or something or other that was like, that had like 4 or 5 copies. So I went and bought a second copy at like 6 a.m. because my pre-order wasn't going to get here for a week and I was not waiting a week to read that book. And then I read it all in one day. So I got it about 6:15-ish, about 7 o'clock, put it down about midnight, read the whole thing in one sitting, other than stopping to eat. I was like,
I couldn't even read The Last Battle in one sitting. That's impressive.
Look, man, it had been years and years and years of waiting for this. I'm like, I need to know how this damn thing ends. I need to know how it ends. Like, what's going to happen? And, you know, I'll say this, we'll talk about your review of Memory Light here. I don't think it's a perfect ending. I don't think we were ever going to get a perfect ending. And I think it was even harder without Robert Jordan there to write it. Right. I think Sanderson did an absolutely amazing, unparalleled good job in terms of picking up somebody else's work and finishing it. But I think it's a very satisfying conclusion to the series in the sense that there are obviously loose ends, but there were deliberate loose ends. Robert Jordan wanted to leave a few loose ends in that book. And so there are some. But I think it did a really good job of kind of giving a sense of closure to the series, and then leaving us enough room to kind of speculate as to what's happening now. So,
you know, that's one of the things I'm probably the saddest about is that I didn't get to spend all the years with the fan theories and whatnot. Because I get a lot of people like, oh, what do you think about this? And I'm like, I haven't thought about it yet, guys, because I didn't have year waits between these books. I had day waits between these books, you know? So I do, like I said, I wish that I had actually written down like a lot of men's viewings the first time I'd read this and stuff like that to see how things went around. But yeah, being a Song of Ice and Fire fan, I think about how many, I mean, I'm sick of it at this point, but before the show was a thing, we had all these theories. Like all the people are like, oh, R plus L equals J. I have this theory. Like that theory's been out there. That's why when I say, oh, Temadra, that's not my theory. That was a theory. And I'm sure that and the Who Killed Osmodena thing was probably wild for years.
Well, real quick, guys, and quick pause here. Hey, everybody in the chat. We are actually going to be looking at the chat today. So we're on, just to give you guys a heads up, we're on a 20-second delay because of the way that we're streaming this. And so just a heads up, if you're typing something and I don't respond to it, I'm going to try my best to get to them quickly. You know, obviously anything highlighted I'm going to see, but we are going to be taking some questions here. I want to hit on a couple things here, but certainly if you've got any questions for Mike or anything that you want to see us talk about, definitely throw that out in the chat. If you don't mind hitting the like button, because of the really weird way, like we're not as cool as the Dusty Wheel, who I see in the chat there. Good to see you, Matt. We're not as cool here. We don't really understand technology. And so we can't plan this stuff ahead. And so people are just finding out about the stream and tuning in here. So if you don't mind hitting the like button on the video, that really helps YouTube tell everybody about this. And if you don't mind sharing it to, everybody that that's cool too. So I have a bunch of topics here. So I wrote down a bunch of things.
All right.
That I wanted to ask you. And I'm purposefully putting you on the spot. Mike really wanted me to send him the questions ahead of time, like a planned interview. And I totally didn't do it. I'm putting him on the spot here. We're going to grill him. We're just going to do Wheel of Time trivia, Mike. Anything you get wrong, we're going to trash you in the comments.
You might as well go ahead and start.
Let's start with spellings. I'm joking. But no, all in all, what were your general thoughts? You've now finished the Wheel of Time. Was it what you thought it would be when you went into it? Were you disappointed? Was it better? Was it about what you thought it would be? And it's okay, by the way, to not think it was as good as you thought it might have been. Okay.
So spoilers are okay, right? I mean,
yeah,
okay.
By the way, all spoilers, guys. If you're in the chat and watching and you haven't finished the books, you're here at your own risk.
When I read Eye of the World, and I thought, okay, I mean, for real this time, when I actually read it through last year for the first time, and I said, okay, it isn't quite the Fellowship clone like I think it had been advertised as, but I was like, I could see where people come from. But I was like, I didn't think it was the worst thing ever, but I didn't think it was anything special. Then I read The Great Hunt, and that changed everything. And that's when I realized this is not what I was expecting at all. The whole flicker part, that part just blew me away. And I had never read anything like that before. And I was in at that point. So as far as was I disappointed, I will say that I think that this would have been an amazing 8 or 9 book series. If it had been cut down to that much, it would have been just absolutely just fire. But I also acknowledge that I am a first-time reader, and I know that a lot of those things that people consider slow, which, by the way, the slog is completely overblown, guys. It isn't nearly what people say it is. But I am glad I had the warnings, so I was kind of prepared for that. But I'm sure those things mean so much more in a reread, and I understand that. And a lot of people snap me. That's probably the number one comment I get of pushback is, well, on a reread. Well, guys, I'm 41. There's a lot of series I want to read still. I'm still trying not to fit 15 books that look like this over and over again. I'm not saying it won't ever happen again. In fact, what I've said is that when the series goes, whatever, if the two books per series thing is true, you would know if that's true before I would or whatever. But then I would probably if I didn't completely reread them, I would definitely go through some of my favorite parts again, and just so I can make sure I can nitpick them when the series comes out.
If you ever do it, Mike, my suggestion would be do it on Audible, even if you're not an audiobook guy.
I say I struggle with audiobooks, but so many people tell me, you got to listen to the audiobooks with this, and with First Law, and with the Dresden Files. The number one comment is you got to check out the audiobooks. And I say that I don't have reading ADD, obviously, but I have listening ADD. It comes when you have young kids, guys. You learn how to just block noise out, and you can't turn that off. But I think now that I know where the series is going, maybe I could probably try that.
I think it gives it gives you a different perspective, and you'll catch things that you didn't catch the first time. When I do it, I don't know if you have a commute or anything like that, but I just do it a lot when I'm driving. Or if I'm cooking, I have my Alexa, now Alexa's going to talk. All right. But I do that a lot on audiobook. But yeah, the weird thing with Wheel of Time is I think you can certainly obviously enjoy the books, and I don't think it's a reasonable expectation that everybody should reread a 15-book series. What I do think is kind of unique about it, though, is I do think this is probably the most rereadable series I've ever read. And I've read a lot. I read a lot of the same books that you're into. I mean, you and I have shared similar interests, which is part of the reason, I gravitated to watching you. We share interest there, and it's amazing the depth that's there. And I think the slog has a new. I think it's overblown. It was a bigger deal certainly when it was coming out, because I think the issue with Crossroads of Twilight, I know you didn't think Crossroads of Twilight was as rough as maybe Winter's Heart. Winter's Heart at least had one big event at the end, right? Which was kind of like your big action-filled whatever. Crossroads of Twilight just didn't have that. So when you wait all these years for a book to come out, and it comes out and you're like, wait, nothing new happened. They just did the same stuff from the same stuff that was going on during the last book, right? That's, I think, where people felt slog. But reading it the first time, I think you can appreciate it though when you go back and reread it again. So, all right, I already know the answer to this question, but I want to hear you talk about it a little bit. We'll start with.
I know where this is going.
I'm gonna go a different direction first. Who is your favorite character?
I think it kind of evolved over the series. So let's say if we break the series up into thirds here, the first third it was Perrin, and then he just kind of took a seat for a while. Then the middle third it was Matt, and then I think the last third it became Nynaeve, which I know you'll be very happy to hear. And it was one of those things like right at Knife of Dreams, where I was like, holy crap, I think Nynaeve might actually be my favorite character, and I didn't even see it coming. So yeah, incredible growth for a character. So you're asking me right now, name one character, and I can't take it back. It'd be Nynaeve.
Yep. Well, you and I did a video on my favorite characters. Well, actually, it wasn't my favorite characters. I take that back. It was the best characters, and Nynaeve was number one on my list after my whole if you haven't seen a lot of my videos, Mike, because you haven't been able to watch a lot of spoilers, I do really convoluted and like crazy ranking systems when I do ranking videos. And I did one of those for that one. Some people didn't agree with it, but Nynaeve was my number one. I just think she's the best character in the series. And she's also happens to be my favorite. What specifically about Nynaeve? So tell me a little bit. Like, I know you said a lot of growth. You've talked about this in some of your videos, which, by the way, if you guys are not subscribed to Mike's channel, if you have not watched all of his videos, you need to do that. MK, do you mind throwing up a link to Mike's channel? Because of the way this is set up, I couldn't put it in the description. I'll do it afterwards. But if you can throw up a link to Mike's channel, that would be awesome in the chat. But why do you like Nynaeve so much? Tell me that.
I think the thing with Nynaeve is a lot of the times is you'll say their character from book 1 to book 14, they change so much. I don't think Nynaeve ever really changes. I think that we change as we kind of go along. And it was just, to me, how she was so overprotective of the Two Rivers people that really made me gravitate towards her at the end, where, I mean, she was even standing up for Matt there at the end. I was just like, wow, this is just great. And, that big old hug with Moraine there in book 14, just, I mean, it was just, I don't know. I've just had an emotional attachment to her that I didn't realize was there. And I think that's what really just made me be like, wow, she might have became my favorite character. And I didn't even realize it. I wasn't expecting, because you've told me that at around Crossroads of Twilight. I've been like, no, but yeah.
Well, she goes from being like the most hypocritical character in the show or in the series, right? Like, she
always angry. Yeah.
Do what I say, not what I do. Like, you're being rude when I'm being extremely rude. Like, she does that. Like, that's who she is.
For apologizing, I think in Crown of Swords was my favorite.
But you liked it. You end up seeing it's just her insecurities coming through, right? Like, a lot of this is, but at deep down, like, she thinks she's a coward when she does some of the most heroic style things while she's afraid, right? Like, she goes up against Moghedien. She captures Moghedien. Like, then she uses Moghedien to save Rand, and then all these
gentling and stilling, and she can cure madness. Yeah, she's awesome.
She's got badass moments, but then I'll tell you the two moments to me that I just love the most about her character. One, you hit on this one, I think, in one of your reviews. One of my favorite moments for her is when she says, "I'd rather love Lan than be an Aes Sedai." And not so much that it's all about, oh, she's head over heels with Lan. That's not really what it is, but it's more, if I lose who I am to be a part of this group, then what's the point of being a part of that group, right?
Right, and that was full circle from book 1, where she actually does choose Aes Sedai over Lan, So yeah, that was heartfelt.
I love that. That was one of my favorite parts. And then obviously, it's hard to not love the scene where she goes to World's End and starts just bouncing around the borderlands, talking to people to follow Lan. And it's strange, because if you hear that on the audiobook, that's one section, by the way, I would tell you, if you get a chance, Mike, look up the audiobook version of that section.
The Golden Crane?
Yeah, and listen to that, because it's so well done. So well done, and I think it absolutely gives you it gives you some, it gives an added perspective. That's probably the word I'm looking for. Now, Chansonet here, I say, ugh, I would never choose some dude over the one power. Sorry, all you guys out there. I hear you, but I don't think that's Lan. Here's where I don't think this is about Nynaeve choosing Lan or some guy over being an Aes Sedai, because frankly, Nynaeve's going to live for literally probably 700 more years if she ever takes off the oath rod, and Lan is not going to live that long. So like, it's not so much she's giving that up, but I think in reality what Nynaeve is saying, and tell me if you disagree here, Mike, but I don't feel like it's, oh, I just love Lan so much I don't
I
want to
took it as I'm going to choose family over this.
Right. I'm going to choose caring about people.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what she says. If it's either me running to save a village and not looking like an Aes Sedai running haphazardly or trying to be calm, I'm going to go save people. Screw being calm. She says that. And I love that about her character, where she basically says, sorry, Egwene, I'll do what I want.
No, if this was like, I don't want to say the YA word because that gets me in trouble, but if it was like that, oh, I just love him so much, I'm just going to throw reason out the window. That's definitely not what I'm saying. Why I like her. No, not at all.
Yep. All right, let's pivot because I know this one's going to cause some drama.
Oh boy.
I love it. I love the drama.
Is it the E word?
It is. Who's your least favorite character? I mean, she may not be your least favorite character, but who is your least favorite character in the books?
Elaine Tricon.
Okay, why Elaine?
I just think that she's a very, very beautiful idiot. She makes just, if there's a wrong choice to make, she's going to make it. And I really think that this is something that people said, is that something that you would like to see cut from the TV show? No, I actually think that her story, the whole season throne, all that would actually be really good on television. I think I just didn't think it worked a lot in the books. I don't need any more baths or tea time with her or any of that stuff. Now I know a couple of times people did point out that I missed it. I struggled big time with the bubbles of evil. I struggled catching when that was happening, when it was not happening. So the one time where I said, oh, she was an idiot that you couldn't even find her own apartment, I was the idiot that didn't understand what I was reading there. That happens. I messed up on that one. But I don't know. It just seemed like she was always not necessarily damsel-y, but it did seem like Birgitta had to save her like every time. But it was when her just being a wool-headed idiot and got all those Aes Sedai killed, that's when I really just like turned on her. And I still get kind of mad about it.
So do you think that, I'm going to dig into that a little bit. Do you think you just don't like her, or is she written poorly?
I don't think that Robert Jordan could write anything poorly, really. I mean, I've said numerous times that does he get long-winded? Sure, but I think he's one of the greatest writers I've ever had. So I don't think that necessarily he was written poorly. I just don't think I liked her as much as Mr. Jordan did, because I don't know about the percentage. I think there's a viewer on the channel who wrote down how many POV chapters and how much percentage she had. I'm not going that far, whatever. But it seemed like one POV chapter of Elaine was about 5 of somebody else.
It's strange too, because I think, well, I'll throw this out there. So one of the things Robert Jordan, and now that you've completely read all the Wheel of Time, you may be able to give a little insight, or maybe you've seen this as well. He is very, very good at writing unreliable narrators. Okay. Because we get a lot of point of view scenes, right? Like we get lots and lots of point of view scenes from characters throughout the series. And my first time reading it, I was younger and didn't pick up on this very well. Like I was saying to you before we popped on here, when I first read Wheel of Time, I didn't think Rand was crazy at all. I thought everybody around him just didn't get it. Right? Like that was Rand bale firing an entire building and disintegrating all those people. Oh, it just made sense, right? Like that nobody gets it. He understands what has to be done. And I was like, then you go back and you're like, wait a minute, he's batshit crazy. But I say that, but Robert Jordan writes these things so people say things as statements of fact, and us as readers sometimes think that just because they say things thinking they know what they're talking about, that they actually do. Okay. A good example of this, by the way, is how, do you have any idea what happened at the end of The Eye of the World?
I said that I haven't gone back and watched my old reviews yet because I didn't want them to influence anything that I said, but I plan on doing it now. And I started watching my Eye of the World one today. And in that video, I said, I'm not really sure if I know exactly what the Eye of the World was, but I remember something about cables being cut. And I'm like, at the time I was like, I have no idea what's going on. So
it's a scene that really doesn't make any sense until you get to book 4. Because I'll tell you, I did a video on this breaking it down, but Rand skimmed. So the kind of traveling where you go on the platform, he skimmed for the first time then, and you didn't know he did it. He didn't know he did it. That's why you didn't know what he was doing. Okay. So you go back and you read it. It's like, oh, that's what he was doing. And it makes sense. And Ishamael had drawn him into a dream shard. and that's why he was able to make visions of his mom and things like that. He skimmed there. There were little things that had happened that Rand just didn't know what he was doing. Okay, and so again, it's a good example of when he's writing things from these characters' points of view, we oftentimes get a very skewed point of view. And you see that from Nynaeve, you see that from Elaine, you see that from Egwene, where all these characters like Egwene think she's right all the time. Now, a lot of times Egwene is right, okay, but she also thinks she's right all the time. And you know, he does a really good job, though, in my opinion. One of the two, I think he's got three great qualities as a writer. More than that, but these are the three that I personally think stand out. Number one, this one may not be as obvious to you, but he does a really good job foreshadowing. Everything you needed to know about Rand sealing the bore, you could find out in book one, which is crazy. Okay, so there's that. But it's hard to catch this stuff as it's happening. Rand channeled 3 times in Eye of the World, and maybe you never knew it.
I remember one when him and Matt were they were cornered in an inn or whatever, and he got out. Oh, it just came loose or something like that.
Yeah.
So I figured
there's a couple times that happen, and you just don't know it. So he does a really good job with subtle foreshadowing. There's some really direct foreshadowing with like prophecies and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. But there's little subtle things that he drops that don't pay off until 5 books later that you may not catch. He does that really well. He does the unreliable narrator really well. And obviously he writes pretty vivid descriptions. If you're a visual reader, whereas like you like to take the page, I'm not one of these people. I'm a skim reader. I go real fast and just kind of give me the plot. That's kind of how I read. Some people really like to like stop and smell the roses and read each page and visually build what's going on in their head. I don't know if you're one of those people.
I'm somewhere in the middle here, I think. Yeah.
But he does
all in, but I'll sometimes miss some details, which everybody makes sure that I know I missed.
Well, he just does a really good job of those 3 things, in my opinion. I think relationships are probably the weakest point of his writing, and how he writes them. Before we get into that, I guess let me throw this out there, guys. I do want to get to some of the questions in the comments. And if you are just kind of joining us, or if you're just catching in, please hit that like button. It does help YouTube tell everybody that we're doing this, and promote the video a little bit. Also make sure to check out Mike's channel and give him a subscription. It's worth it. The guy does awesome book reviews, and he's going to be making some more Wheel of Time content too.
I kind of, somebody were saying that they thought that the Memory of Light review was going to be longer than an hour. I was like, look, most of my Wheel of Time book reviews have been an hour, and I find it's very hard, you know this, to talk for more than an hour on your own, or else you'll eventually you'll lose your voice or you'll start repeating stuff. But what I said was I wanted to get that review out because I knew that people were waiting for it, but I still haven't completely decompressed yet. It took me like 5 days after I finished the book to stop being able to cry whenever I thought about it, just because it was over. And I want to do like a retrospective kind of thing, or like a, my journey or something like that. I don't have thought of a fancy name yet or whatever. I'll probably think of something. I'm actually making my way through this for the first time now because I can't be spoiled anymore. When I first got this, I opened up and I was like, oh, okay. I can tell that this is full series spoilers here. I didn't know that. So I never picked it up again until the last battle, because it has the maps of the last battle. But, yeah. But I did want to say real fast about the unreliable narrator thing that you mentioned.
Yeah, go ahead.
My favorite thing about that is Matt, Rand, and Perrin all thinking the other ones are better at talking to girls than they are. It's my favorite running gag the entire series. Love it.
Matt's a character to me that I've said this to other people, and some people tell me they know people like him. I think Brandon Sanderson actually verbally said out loud that he thinks he screwed up Matt. And Matt's a very difficult character to write. And I do think, I know you mentioned you didn't notice it quite so much. I think if I wanted to kind of help pinpoint it with you, Matt just got a little bit more slapstick.
I caught it later, yeah. In Towers of Midnight, I caught it. I think it's when he says like, try the soup or something like that. I was like, what?
That whole boot scene that he has he wrote that whole Hinderstap scene just for the hell of it. I mean, he kind of added that in. But yeah, Matt's a character to me that just couldn't exist in real life. Like Matt, I don't know anybody that is simultaneously that brilliant, but so ignorant half the time too, right? Like there are people like that, but not in the way that Matt is. I just think Matt is a very, like, I can understand how Perrin is how he is. I understand Rand. Matt's a weird one to me. And I think that's partially why people love Matt, because you really can't, he's a rogue. He's the rogue trope, but not really. I don't know. What are your thoughts on Matt?
I think
It's a fan favorite. People
well,
love.
I mean, yeah, I think that a lot of people kind of set me up when I first started. Oh, Matt's my favorite character. And then like the first 4 books, I was like, well, he's kind of doing his being sick over this dagger the whole time, you know? So I was kind of confused at that at first. I was like, this guy must do something really, really great later. And I think it just kind of grew along with that. Over time, I just became like, kind of like, not quite like Nynaeve, but where I was like, it's just fun. This is a fun character. I felt like it kept a lot of things from getting so freaking self-serious that you just started being like, all right, this is just doom and gloom. And we're just kind of foreboding and waiting for something bad to happen. Felt like he was the levity that it needed without it being, as you mentioned, slapstick. But I see those moments when Sanderson kind of took over when I was looking for them. What I meant by that was if someone didn't tell me, I went into this completely blind, I didn't know the author had died, and someone just said, here's 14 books with no author's name attached to it, would I have noticed a difference? Probably not. But that's just because Sanderson's good at what he does.
Yeah, he is really good at what he does. There's a reason he's probably the best fantasy writer out there right now, my opinion. But I think his sales back that up too, though.
He's doing okay.
He's doing all right. Well, so let's hit on the other E word. Okay, so you hit on Elaine. Egwene, here's the thing I'll tell you, Mike. You're not alone in your... Egwene is a divisive character. I would say half the community loves Egwene and half the community can't stand Egwene. Okay, so you're not off base, I don't think. I think there's a lot of vocals out there that love to give you crap about this, but walk me through a little bit. Like, obviously Egwene was not your favorite character.
I was indifferent on Egwene for 2/3 of the series. And people in the comments used to be like, oh, there's not enough Egwene hate. We need more Egwene hate. And then the first second that I mentioned her, it's all of a sudden she must be protected. It just kind of completely blew me away. And I know what happened is I accidentally used the Mary Sue word. And I didn't mean, I said I felt like it was starting to lean towards Mary Sue. And I shouldn't have said that because that's a very, very naughty word in this community. It really is. I mean, there's some places where it applies. Do I think it applies to her? Not necessarily. I did think there was some wish fulfillment stuff that I said if this happened in a YA series, I would call it out for that. And I wasn't going to not do it just because I enjoy Wheel of Time. I mean, the thing about running a book review channel is you're putting on the goggles and you're really just dissecting something and you're looking for criticism, because I don't want to sit there and be like, this is the bestest ever and everything's great and there's nothing to look at. It's always constructive criticism, but people took it personal, man. I have no idea. But I did mention that Theoryland. Actually, I was looking up at some of their old threads, and they had one of Egwene as like the worstest or something like that. And I was like, I think I found my people finally, because I was for a while there. I was like, am I like alone on this? But they told me that this is something like recent in the last few years that people have really flipped on Egwene. That a lot of people did not like her as the series was actually being released.
Well, I think my issues with Egwene throughout the story, I don't quite have the, and I don't want to describe it as visceral hatred from you, because I don't think it's quite that. But, but I appreciate Egwene for what she is. I hear the Mary Sue word thrown around, and I think there are points where you could call that valid, and I think there's an argument to be made there. She doesn't have the plot armor that Matt, Rand, and Perrin do. In that she's not a Ta'Veren. In fact, Robert Jordan came out and said she wasn't a Ta'Veren. She's just an exceptionally skilled person, right? She's a savant is really what she is. And she's a savant that just happened to go through a number of different, very difficult circumstances that did prepare her well for something. And I think Swan goes a little, like, I think sometimes when you attribute, though, the Mary Sue role to Egwene, like, I don't think anybody attributes that to her channeling feats, okay? Or even her dreamwalking skills, to be frank, because those seem explainable, and she's a powerful channeler, and so she learns quick. She was pushed by the Shan-Chan, right? Like, she was essentially a slave. I think where her Mary Sue-ness comes in is her manipulative abilities for people.
That was it for me, the politicking. Right? I'm like, so these people are just going to, oh, okay, you're sure. But I mean, I guess Elida was just that scum. They were like, well, I mean, you're better than that one.
But I do think this. I think she was coached and taught by somebody who had been doing this and was probably the second most manipulative character in the whole series, and that was Swan. Second behind Moraine. Moraine was extremely manipulative, and I love it.
Very Gandalf-like, yes.
Yeah, Swan pulled strings. I mean, that's what she was doing, and Egwene was perceptive to it. But so I guess I would argue a little bit that I think where she takes a step back on the Mary Sue-ness on that is she wasn't doing that alone. You know, these were not, if you go back and read when she first got to Saladar, what a deer in the headlights she was with everything. It wasn't until Swan kind of gave her ideas that she really turned into master manipulator Egwene who's controlling people. The part that I actually felt like was less realistic was some of the ways that some of them acted towards her. I'll just put it that way. I just think that I do think it's a little unrealistic that somebody that is literally, like, some of these Aes Sedai are 200 years old, 175 years old. Like, I don't know if you've ever talked to somebody that's in their 70s. I'm sure you have, but they do not talk to 18, 19-year-old kids as being peers. Right? Like, I think that's natural, right? Anyways, my issues with Egwene were more, I thought I just didn't like her because I felt like she was always very disrespectful of Rand. Not that Rand had done much to earn respect, right? Rand was not exactly a wonderful leader. Like, he was kind of a do as I say or I'll beat your ass kind of leader. But he was the Dragon Reborn, right? And I just felt like Egwene was very condescending towards him, as though he knew nothing about what he was doing and had no clue. And
I brought that up. Her constantly, and somewhat Avienda always demeaning him in front of his men. I was like, wow, they're not going to respect him at all.
Yeah, I didn't care for that. But like I said, I think she grows on me. I did appreciate her. I like her chapters on rereads. I guess I'll put it that way. I really enjoy watching the politics of it, and I feel like that's going to go really well on television. So, like, I feel like Egwene will come across much better on TV.
I'll just say at the end, a lot of people throw the hate word out. Guys, I didn't hate any of these characters, really. I mean, I don't have that Telmanis hate like you have, but I mean, there are little side characters I'm just like, I could take them or leave them. I don't really think that I just like absolutely hate. Yes, I was frustrated by a lot of things that Elaine did, but I know everybody, why didn't you hate Gawain? I don't know. I didn't really hate very many of these characters, really. I wouldn't have read this 4 million words if I hated reading part of it, because I'm not a skimmer, but I didn't like her I thought that she was a very powerful character, and not that those moments weren't earned. I just think that she was a garbage person.
Yeah. So I can get behind it. I think she's certainly, but I think the reason, and I'll come back at this and kind of circle back a little bit. You've mentioned a couple times, like, there's some crazy commenters, and of course there always are on the internet. I think one of the great things about this series, though, is the fact that people can find characters that they identify with, or that they love. And Robert Jordan does such a good job of crafting some of these characters that even some of the side characters people love, right? And the fact that you can have one opinion about Egwene and somebody else can be so diehard, such a fan of that character, and of course vice versa. There's other people that people love. There are people that love Fael. There are people that love Perrin's arcs, believe it or not. First of all, I love Perrin in the first 4 books. I'm not a fan of Perrin from then on. So I kind of agree with you there.
Well, someone mentioned Tylan. Yes, I hated Tylan there. You got me there.
Well, look, that's another debate going on as well. Tylan
I was surprised by the pushback on my opinion on that one. So, yeah.
There's a lot of people that think Matt deserved that, and I'm just going to say I don't think there's ever anybody that deserves.
Moving on.
Right? Right. Okay. So but yeah, that's one thing to me that I think Robert Jordan does so well, is with writing a lot of these characters, you get to see people that you can kind of attach yourself to. One character that I did not like early on in the series that I ended up loving at the end, aside from Nynaeve and aside from Matt, is Galad. I love Galad at the end of the books. I think Galad, and I actually think the White Cloaks as a whole, have an arc throughout the books.
Once Eamon Valda was gone, it was like, the guys aren't so bad.
Well, and you get this fundamentalism, right? Like I think the White Cloaks are a very real force. Like I think if the Wheel of Time world was a real world, I think there would be a group like the White Cloaks. You agree? I mean, I think they would exist.
See, I'm still kind of processing some of this stuff. So I guess I haven't thought about it that way.
I think I love them as an arc. So let's do this. I have a couple other things here, and guys, definitely if you have comments or questions for Mike, let's hear them in the comments. I will try to get to as many of them as I can. What's your favorite plot line in the book? On the spot, let's hear it.
Wow, favorite plot line in the whole series.
Doesn't have to be a series spanning plot.
I guess it would be the buildup of learning about Land's deal with Malkyr in book 1 and not getting a resolution to it until what, like 13, 14. So definitely that him. It felt like if Aragorn had like a slow burn kind of thing, that's what I kind of felt like. And obviously me being a huge ringer, I was all about that. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to keep saying wheelies, guys. Sorry. I'm sorry.
I've never heard that one until you, believe it or not. I have a problem with it. I mean,
apparently the Wheel on Time on Prime Twitter account used it, and Narg was very, very angry at me for it. So,
well, Narg is a big deal, so you better watch it. Narg is a smart trolley. Least favorite plot line?
Elaine getting the throne. I know it needed to happen. I just think it took 3 or 4 books. Yeah, that's all. If it had happened in like 1 book, sure, probably would have been pretty cool. But I think that's something that'll be better on TV. I do.
I think so too. I think it'll be a little Game of Thrones-ish.
Absolutely.
Especially if they do it well. I think that's one of those things they'll probably modify. We'll talk about that part in a second here. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to shelve that comment. I see this one in the comments for you. Character you most identified with?
I think it kind of depends on the age, because I see a little bit of parents emo and some of younger Mike, and I see some of Matt during my wild and party drinking days, and Dyson. I didn't really never dice, but, we played cards, and smoked cigars, and and drank a lot of beer and stuff like that. So without just sounding like pretentious, I don't want to start naming like all these like decent characters and be like, oh, I don't like that. But I mean, for a kind of a female side of it, I guess you could say there was some Moraine, because I have that way usually where I'll present something, be like, look, this is your decision to make, but I'm going to tell you why you should make it this way. I've been known to do that a few times. Like we said, the kind of slow, easy manipulation. Not that I consider myself a manipulative person. I'm just saying that I can find myself doing that.
So you're saying you're super manipulative is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, you look at my why you should read videos.
I am totally joking.
This is why you should read it. And by the end of it, they're like, God damn it, I got to go buy something else now. So there, I kind of like that. And I don't ever try to do it like in a self-serving way.
Okay, so here's one for you. Something that you didn't understand in the books your first time reading it. Or that you're not sure.
What was Fane's point in the story?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I mean, I know that's probably pretty popular since it got. I was actually expecting to get grilled off that comment in my Memory of Light review, but most people agreed.
Nope. It's one of those things Brandon actually has said that he understands.
He didn't have any notes. Yeah.
Well, it's not so much that is he definitely says that he would have fleshed that out more. Like that's certainly something that he would have done differently. So that's going to be a good springboard. So let's talk about that one. How would you have changed his character?
Plot and Fane, I have no idea. I mean, it's not for some people say like he was supposed to be like the new Dark Lord if Rand killed the Dark One. I don't. I have no idea. It's something that I've told people many times, and this is why I'm such a bad D&D player, is because the reason I read is because I can't tell a story for anything. So if you're going to tell me to say, hey, here's something Robert Jordan didn't finish right, what would you have done? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Just like I said, I have my problems with the final confrontation with Rand the Dark One, but I don't know what I would have changed. I don't know what I would have done differently. I don't know what I was expecting. I just think after 14 books of buildup, I was expecting. It was unattainable goal at that point for me to meet expectations, I think. But at least it was actually there, and it wasn't just, like Sauron never really actually showed up. So that's what I said I wanted.
So I see this comment in the comments here. What was your biggest holy shit moment from the show or from the books?
Whoa. Ashaman Kill, I think the meat grinder in New Eyes Wells for sure. That was probably one of the first times that like that had the hair standing up on the arms, because I was like, I think all those people who told me that this is PG were lying their ass off, because this is brutal. This is brutal. And I said, it isn't like, not everything has to be Joe Abercrombie or George R. R. Martin here. It doesn't have to be up in your face for it to be there. And it's definitely there. The sex and the violence are in the series for sure. And Doom Eyes Wells was the first time I was like, geez, this is descriptive.
Yep. It blows my mind, honestly, that people that think the books are PG. I don't even understand sometimes I'm like, are we reading the same books?
I think it's pre George R. R. Martin. People don't believe that these things existed, and I haven't read like Black Company and stuff like that, but I know that grimdark was kind of a thing there. And it's not necessarily this is grimdark, but I'm just saying that people assume that traditional fantasy is always just, for preteens.
The Golem ripped Herod Fell limb from limb.
That was your shocking moment?
No, I'm just saying like that exists.
Oh yeah.
Is that PG?
No, it ripped Tylen's head off, and I hope they show it on the show.
Right, like these are like I just, in people's bodies are literally exploding. I don't know. I don't even know how you can say that this is not a TVMA.
Someone mentioned in the comments, a parent cutting off that dude's hands. That was that was a holy shit moment for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or what about Varen's big reveal? You knew it was coming, so you were very good about predicting that.
I knew that one of them, but the way it was done. I mean, I said that I thought either her or Cad Swain was Black Aja. I'd been on that for a while. I had no idea what their little game was or whatever. But still, the way it came out was just, it was very well done.
Can you think of the first time? See, Varen is somebody that people predicted very early on. And there's one particular thing that told people this, basically.
Yeah, where Moraine said she didn't send her.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that. It was like 10 books ago, guys. I forgot about it,
Yep.
So
okay. Here's where I want to go that I think could be kind of interesting, because I want to brainstorm a little bit about you. Okay. You hit on this and you said you weren't even sure where to start. So I'll give some maybe prompts into this, and then we can kind of go deeper with it. So they're turning it into a show, in case you didn't know that.
I've heard this.
Or have you heard?
Yeah, these rumors. Yeah.
They're obviously going to have to change some things. If you were making the show, what are some things that you might change? And while you're thinking about answering that, I'll say one for me, okay? Because I know that you'll probably agree with me on this one, just based on I know some of your opinions. I think the Wheel of Time simultaneously has great villains, but sometimes toothless villains, okay? The Forsaken, I think you maybe give them a little too much crap, because they were worthless for a lot, but they were almost successful a lot of times. Like there were for instance, let's take Ravine. Ravine had beaten Rand, but he could never have anticipated Nynaeve randomly showing up with Moff Gideon to burn him to a crisp. Like, he had a plan for that. Samael had Rand beat, except Moradin saved him, because Moradin did not want Samael to kill Rand. You've got Bilal.
Forsaken started at Winter's Heart, though. I thought they were decent before that. At Winter's Heart, through like the next couple of books, I was just like slipping on banana peels. I made the reference of, they remind me of the Cylons. If you guys watch the modern Battlestar Galactica, where this whole series, you thought that they're just like these amazing, they just think out everything. They're like Batman. They always have a plan for everything. And then you see that movie they made that shows it from the Cylons' point of view, and they were clueless. They had no idea, and they couldn't stop fighting with each other. So I do kind of lean on the Three Stooges thing more than I probably should, just because it makes people angry, and sometimes that's funny. But right. I do think that there's some of them, obviously, Delusions of Grendel. I know how you feel. Because
Grendel, reality, I think Grendel is one of the better ones.
She was very good in Memory of Light, and I did not highlight that in the video. And I do apologize.
She got screwed, basically, by Perrin being able to move the Dream Spike. Mm-hmm. Like, her whole plan works if Ta'Veren stopped being Ta'Veren. That's sort of what gets them over and over again. They've got these plans, like Bilal set up an entire master plan to get Rand to draw Kalandor and give it to him, and it works. But he had no idea Moraine would pop up out of nowhere and shoot balefire, that Moraine had tracked them that far, right? Like, there's almost moments for every single one of them. But here's my issue with them. It's not the almost moments, because clearly they can't win, Like they have to lose. So it's that they don't do enough. Like we hated Joffrey because from episode 2 of the show, Joffrey lies and gets Sansa's wolf killed. Right? Like I hated Joffrey from that moment on. It wasn't beheading Ned. Sorry, Game of Thrones spoilers. But it wasn't that. It was that. It started early. He did something that impacted me emotionally. And I feel like that is what is missing sometimes from these villains is their actions do not impact the people that we care about emotionally very often.
So you want them to be more, you want to be more vicious on the show?
Yeah, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be deaths, although I do think one I volunteered out there, and now that you're at this point, we can talk about it. I think when in the scouring of the two rivers, that's what I like to call it with Pot on Fane, I want to see him kill Bran Alvear or Meryn publicly.
Makes sense.
Because what does that do for us to him? Like we like Bran Alvear. He's a likable dude. Now he doesn't
builds up your villain more than having them kill off a good person.
Yeah, and Bran's he's an expendable character, right? Like, and that adds a little extra emotional arc to Egwene. I mean, I think those are things that. Do I want to see Bran die because I'm an evil guy? Well, yeah, I'm the Nae'Blis, but I just want, I want the villains to have teeth, because villains that have teeth impact us, and we love to hate them. How much did people love to hate Ramsay Bolton? How much did people love to hate Joffrey? How much? I think the best villains in the series are, frankly, I think they're the Shanshan. The other one that I want to see, and this one is super controversial. I see some people talking about it in the chat. I want Cimarog to make Rand kill Min.
Whoa. Okay. Well, see, Min is my favorite of Rand's little circle of women.
Which is exactly why.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it.
And tell me that wouldn't feed into the arc of what was going on with Rand at that time anyway.
But as a huge book fan of this, would changes like that really bother you, though? That's the thing.
They wouldn't bother me because, again, I understand. To me, the series is going to be a totally separate thing within the books. There are things they are going to have to do to make these books translate well to the screen. And I'm telling you, villains drive these stories. And the villains need to have teeth, especially in a visual medium. Like we need to hate them. And I love that emotional impact. So I know people are going to disagree on me on that. Like we all like Min, right? Well, some people don't like Min, but I just think what that would do to Rand would be awesome to see on screen. That's why. So that's one change I would make for the show is
you started a fire in your chat here.
Look, I love it. I love it. I am evil. Guys,
I think a change I would like to see is obviously narrowing down some of the side characters. There's 2,800 characters or something in this. Obviously, they're not going to be able to do that. I'm not saying anything as vast as I've heard people saying, oh, they need to combine Elaine and Min or something like that. No, nothing that crazy. But a lot of these 8 billion Aes Sedai characters whose names start with an S, yeah, let's weave a couple of those down. Let's mix some of those up and stuff like that. But what I do not want to see them do, and I see this so much as a Stephen King fan, and it drives me bananas, is do not take a series that has this many characters and create new characters. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? Stop it. There's enough characters. If you want to change the role a little bit, that's fine. But don't create new characters when you've got 2,800 strong in this series.
I think the only time I think that they would do that, and again, I'm looking at interviews from Rafe and things like that, would be if they're going to combine a bunch of characters into one. At that point. Now, there are times where I think that might be necessary. Like again, they're going to have to make. Well, I'll use an example here. So, Corrine Nagashi. Do you know who Corrine Nagashi is? I doubt it, but
I can't say I do.
She's one of the Aes Sedai that the Amyrlin in New Spring sent after searching for Rand, basically.
Okay, all right.
She gets killed by Dark Friends. She's considered one of the most powerful Aes Sedai. She's got an off-screen mention of her death. That's Corrine Nagashi in New Spring. She is a character in the series. Like they've cast an actress for her.
Well, a lot of people believe they're going to do New Spring stuff in season 1, right?
She doesn't really even appear in New Spring. And her whole role in New Spring is, hey, go search for them. Okay, let me get on a boat and die. That's her role. That's basically what it is. So if they're going to have to establish a character. So, and that, so you're going to have one of two things. They're either going to need to drastically expand her role in New Spring, or she's an amalgamation of a bunch of different Aes Sedai that they're just picking somebody and making into one. That could also be what's happening.
Okay, well, bringing this back to your villain idea, how about I've heard that Rafe Judkins wants to make Logain have a bigger role, which what I said in The Memory of Lies, I feel like I could have used more Logain in the series, so I'm for that. I would say give Padan Fain a bigger role in the series, so I know what the hell that could be the villain that we need, that just shows up and just knifes people that we love, you know?
I want Padan Fain to be bigger, and I guess this is another question. How would you have ended Padan Fain's storyline differently?
I actually thought that the way it was ended was fine. I thought that with the whole, the thing about disease, you can't get it twice. I thought that was fine. It came full circle with Matt with the dagger. I was fine with that. I just didn't understand why I'd been reading this guy for the last 10 books, showing up out of nowhere from the corner, shanking people, and then just like running off into the corner again. That was what it was. Like, why have I been following this guy for this long?
Well, I'll give you one major role that you might not have caught that he played. He was how Rand figured out how to cleanse the source. His wound in Rand's side, locked in with the Shamael's wound in his side, was how Rand figured out how to cleanse Sidene. So that's part of it. I mean, he played a role there. Now it's a weird one, because you're right. You kind of felt like they were setting him up to be the Dark Friend, like the new Dark One or something like that. Or was he going to get sealed too? Like what? And they would cancel each other out. Like I remember that being a theory, is that somehow Padan Fain would get sealed with the Dark One, and then they would kill each other by canceling each other out or something like that. Like that was a theory before A Memory of Light. So I'm going to ask you a couple big theory questions. Who do you think Nakomi was?
I've had so many people ask me that, and I was like, guys, I have no idea, because and this upsets people that are really, big rereaders and stuff like, this slide is driving me crazy. Big rereaders are asking me things like that. And I'm like, guys, here's my thing. There are so many characters in this series that as a first time reader, if I don't see their name about 24 times, they start to fly out of the ear a little bit. So I didn't really give her that much of a second thought until someone asked me about her. And then I grow to find out that this is something that fans have argued about for a decade now, or however long it's been. Reading these not around release date, I don't know how old some of them are.
Now, one thing I wanted to hear from you that I did not hear in your Memory of Light review.
Oh boy.
What the heck do you think was going on with Rand at the end?
With the pipe?
Yep.
It's one of those things I couldn't explain, and someone explained why I was wrong. And that people love to go through these with a red pen and fact check you. What I had said at the beginning of Towers of Midnight, when he was manipulating the vegetation or whatever, that it said, isn't that something only the creator could do? So I was like, has he actually been like taken over by the creator, or is the creator like working through him or something like that? But people really shot that down really quick. So I don't know. And hasn't Brandon Sanderson even said himself that people haven't figured this out?
Well, it's one of the things that Brandon actually doesn't really truly know himself.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't allowed to reveal it. So he knows a little bit of it. He knows more than he's been allowed to reveal, but there's 3 things that he's not allowed to tell. That's one of them.
Do we know what the other ones are?
Who Nakomi is the other one. And then, Matt Hatch, you're going to have to help me out with number 3.
Who killed Osmodean? No, I'm kidding.
Nope, that one's real. Who did kill Osmodean?
Grendel, right?
Grendel did it, yep. Yeah. What other big mysteries? Do you want to see Demon Dread expanded in the show? And do you want to see Shara expanded in the show?
I need some kind of thing. I know this when I brought that up, someone was like, well, actually, they planted the seeds for the Shrine in the very first book. And I'm like, oh, okay. There was so much going on in that first book that I might not have remembered this, 13 books later. But I definitely think we need to see some of him being, what was his name? What was he going on right there? Bow or something like that?
Bow the Wild?
That's what we need to see some of that stuff, I think, because I really think it was just kind of, you can probably tell me if this is true or not. Is it true that people were so much on the Tame Mondred thing that he actually changed it because so many people had that?
That's not confirmed. Here's what it is. In the notes, supposedly it says that. Okay, that he had originally maybe plotted out, but that does not mean that there's a lot of stuff in the notes that isn't in the books.
Don't ever imagine Tame's like, okay, or Demandre's always like, I'm building my force, and you're assuming. I don't know if others assume. I'm sure that people were assuming he's talking about the Black Tower and the Ashaman, right? So would that be too big of a reveal? But on the TV show, I don't think you can be like, oh, is he actually Tame? Is Badger Tame actually Demandred or whatever? So yeah, if you want to give him or well, I guess Balzamon's going to have a big part, right? Or Ishamio. So yeah, definitely more Demandre, because while I liked seeing all of a sudden, holy shit, this guy's a badass, especially with a sword. I thought that was really, really cool. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that. Just if we're going to have one really badass Forsaken, I wouldn't mind seeing his role expanded for sure. I wouldn't mind seeing all the Forsaken's roles expanded on the show. Well,
and there is another short story that I would tell you to check out from the Unfettered anthology that called River of Souls. Mm-hmm. And it is the story of the story of Demandred getting the Sakarnan.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and what he does, and he fights off a Jumara, which is like the worms from the Blight, a full-grown one, and there's a little story, and you meet some of the characters from the Sharans basically in that story. Okay, and so you do get a little bit of what he was doing in that kind of. I feel like that should be part of the show. I rather than using the Sharans arriving as a surprise, I really feel like there could be some setup there, because really what I want out of it, Demandred to me is, of the Forsaken, he is the most, he could have been good. And that was what Brandon talks about. Like, Brandon did an interview on the Dusty Wheel, and Brandon talked about this. Like, he's a guy that could have been the dragon. Like, he could have been the good guy and was the good guy, and just decided to be selfish, like chose to go a different route. And that's why Logain is sort of his opposite, right? Like, Logain had that opportunity to go for power, and then instead of taking the power, he chose to go save civilians. Okay. And up till that point, Logain's character had been driven by the desire for power to control his life. Okay, what are you laughing at in the comments now?
Make Demandred less dumb. That's making me laugh.
Start screaming for it. Yep, Shantane loves to. She's got some pretty good astute opinions.
I was going to say, so when you're talking about like, it's kind of like Neville and Harry Potter parallel there. So it's like he's an evil Neville. So thank you for saying that, because whenever I bring up Harry Potter, people are like, will you stop talking about Harry Potter? I'm like, look, you got a School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. I'm going to talk about Harry Potter. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, guys, real quick, we're hitting an hour here, and I don't want to keep Mike forever. Let's throw some last thought comments here in the chat. Anything that you want to kind of talk through or that we have not hit on? I'm sure we can always do something like this again, maybe with a little bit more defined topic. But anything else you guys want to ask Mike while we're waiting? And is there anything else, Mike, while we're waiting for some questions to roll in? Anything else you would want to say that you would want to add to the TV show?
You mentioned River of Souls. Now that's completely Robert Jordan. Because I had said that I wanted Memory of Light to be like my last impression.
Well, okay, I take it back. It's not all Robert. It's a removed chapter, from my understanding, and I could be wrong. Somebody couldn't correct me on this, but
it's got the Sandworms of Dune in it. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's a Sanderson removed chapter.
Okay.
So they removed it, but they said that it was canon. They put it in the Unfettered anthology. So if that, I would definitely look that up. It's a good read. I mean, it's not long. There's a couple other small reads that are written by Robert Jordan. Like, there is a Assault on Sheol Ghul. That's a small read. That's a little short story that Robert Jordan wrote about Lews Therin's assault on the Boar. You can find that one. That's a good one to check.
It's okay if I answer some of these chat questions.
Please, let's hear them.
What scene am I most looking forward to in the live action? Since we don't know how long the show will go, I don't know if we're going to get Great Hunt in season 1, but yeah, the portal stones and the flicker scene, I want to see that so bad. And then of course the duel with Turak at the end of that book is where I was first moment where I was like, this is already wild, because I was expecting that to be the first moment. This was traditional fantasy, like every other just fan. That had been the moment where Rand like embraced that he was going to channel whatever, but then he fought this Blade Master and won. So good. God, I love that book so much.
I think The Great Hunt is probably the most underrated book in the entire series. It's not my favorite book, but it's extremely underrated. I love the pacing of it. I think the pacing of Great Hunt is amazing.
What's my favorite city? Whichever one Elaine's not in. I don't really guess I have one. I mean, Two Towers is more of a village than a city, or Two Rivers. Did I say Two Towers? Two Rivers is more of a village than a city. So I don't necessarily know that I have one. Maybe Tyr. Tyr's pretty cool. I'd like to see that.
I want to see this. We've never seen a visual representation of the Stone of Tyr. So I always pictured like a mountain. Like, did you ever read Redwall?
As a kid, I did, but I don't remember much. For a while there, I was thinking maybe I was actually remembering Reepicheep and Chronicles of Narnia more than Redwall. But my wife was reading some a few years ago, and I was like, wow, that's a series I really liked when I was younger.
I loved it when I was little. I mean, you and I are about the same age. You're a little older than me, but I read those books growing up, and I always pictured the Stone of Tyr. What was the mountain? Salamandastron? Is that the mountain?
Couldn't tell you.
From Redwall. Anyways, that's how I picture. I just pictured like this big mountain. I don't know.
I would love some Tam backstory. Someone asked about Tam's backstory. I would love more Tam on the show, period. That's actually something I'm sad I didn't get up in the book, is finding out his and I heard there was like a rumor that was something that Jordan had planned to write, was Tam's backstory when he was actually a soldier. This is all like hearsay at this point, though, right?
The one I know that was planned was there was an Outrigger novel with Matt and Tuon 10 years after the last battle that he was going to write. That's not going to get written now, but that was one of the things I know that he had planned. Outside of that, I don't know.
If we don't see Narg talking to Rand, we riot. Okay, Narg has to talk to Rand.
Well, hey, Rafe confirmed that, guys, so that we're going to get Narg. Narg is in the books, or in the show. Well, guys, hey, I think we'll wrap up here. What I'd love to say is this. First of all, if you are not subscribed to Mike's book reviews, you need to do that. First of all, go watch his videos, like his videos, subscribe to his channel, watch all his stuff. It's really fun. I mean, he's a good guy, and he's good. He's really good at reviewing books. He's one of my favorite booktubers. And you all should be subscribing to him. So if you are not and you're watching this, please do that. Anything else you want to say here, Mike, before we sign off?
Yeah, you guys, I did just finish Wheel of Time. So I know that people are like, well, you're not doing Wheel of Time. I don't need to check it. I do horror, sci-fi, fantasy, or whatever. I listen to what you guys want. I ask constantly. I put polls up, stuff like that. What do you guys want me to read? What do you guys want me to talk about? So nothing's off the table. And with the show coming out, there's going to be no lack of Wheel of Time talk on the channel. So you don't have to worry about that. I just did my first live stream last weekend. I've discussed the ideas if Amazon does like a weekly drop instead of a full series drop, doing live streams, maybe doing some stuff with you guys, something like that for each of those. So if you're just afraid that, hey, well, you're done with Wheel of Time, I don't really need to. I like to think that there's plenty there to keep you entertained. I'm doing Dresden Files right now. I'm doing the Cosmere right now. I'm going to go back to Witcher here soon. So there's plenty for everybody, I think, on the channel.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thank you to Mike for being on and talking about Wheel of Time with us. And maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Blood and Bloody Ashes. I hope so.
Thanks, guys.